Okay, so today we're really digging into something I think everyone experiences, this big paradox.
Which paradox is that?
Well, it's this huge gap, right, between what looks incredibly smart on paper, the perfect plan, the detailed analysis, and what actually truly works out in the messy reality of life and business.
Ah, yes. The analysis versus action problem. It's that friction, isn't it? Where you know intellectually what you should be doing. Maybe you've even mapped it all out,
Exactly.
but you're just stuck, completely paralyzed, maybe even by how much you know. If that sounds familiar to you listening, well, this deep dive should be really useful.
Yeah, the original essay we're looking at captures this so well with this anecdote about Mike and Jenny. They were co-founders, their startup failed.
Right, a tough situation.
And Mike's reaction was, well, almost predictable for a certain type of smart person. He went straight into what the essay calls like hyper-analytical detective mode.
Spreadsheets,
Uh-huh.
frameworks.
Oh, yeah. Massive spreadsheets, mapping every single decision, trying to pinpoint the exact moment things went wrong. And the essay says he achieved, quote, perfect clarity on the failure.
Perfect clarity. Sounds impressive, but what happened next?
Well, that's the thing. 6 months down the line, he was still there, still analyzing. He had this flawless understanding of the past failure, but zero forward momentum. He was essentially optimizing his understanding of the failure, not actually moving on from it.
He was stuck in the postmortem, polishing the analysis instead of building something new.
Precisely. And then there's Jenny, his co-founder. Her approach was totally different.
Yeah.
She didn't just brush it off, mind you. The essay makes it clear she took a couple of weeks, really felt the disappointment, which seems, necessary.
Healthy even. You need to process it.
Right. But then she started moving, started networking, reaching out, following leads that just kind of felt right based on her experience, her gut feeling maybe, not just a logical map.
And the result?
Found a really exciting new role within 3 months while Mike was still perfecting his failure analysis.
Wow. That contrast really does say it all, doesn't it? It suggests the skills that matter most aren't always about, complex frameworks or optimizing every little detail.
So what are they then?
It seems to be more about developing practical wisdom, understanding our own human psychology, the biases, the emotions, the limitations, and learning to work with them, not just trying to overpower them with logic.
Which leads us right into the psychology of why we get stuck, especially, it seems, smart people. The essay mentions this idea of the brain's detective mode when we succeed.
Yeah, metacognition.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating concept. Basically, it's your brain's ability to think about its own thinking process.
How does that work in success?
Well, say you have an accidental win, something works out, but you're not quite sure why. Metacognition is that step back where your brain goes, okay, hold on, what exactly did I do there? What was the sequence?
Ah, so it's trying to learn from it.
Exactly. It's trying to turn that random luck into a deliberate, repeatable skill. To update your mental playbook for what works, it's fundamentally about learning and improvement.
Okay, that sounds incredibly useful. A feature, not a bug.
Okay.
But you mentioned it becomes a trap when applied to failure, especially for intelligent folks.
It really can, because intelligence gives us this dangerous superpower, as the essay calls it, the ability to rationalize almost anything.
I think I know what you mean.
You give a really bright person a conclusion they want to believe, or maybe a flawed idea they came up with, and they won't just accept it or reject it based on simple evidence. No, they can build these incredibly intricate, logical-sounding arguments to support it.
They mistake the complexity of their reasoning for correctness.
Precisely. They think because they can handle complex intellectual problems, they must be immune to really basic psychological biases, like confirmation bias or motivated reasoning.
But wait, let's go back to Mike for a second. If he really did get perfect clarity on the failure, wasn't that analysis useful? Isn't understanding why you failed important? Where's that line between useful reflection and getting trapped?
That's the crucial question. The line, I think, is crossed when the analysis stops being about informing future action and starts being primarily about protecting your ego or justifying the past.
Ah, okay.
The trap is aiming that powerful analytical ability in the wrong direction. If you start with the conclusion, maybe, it wasn't really my fault, or my core idea was brilliant, it was just the market timing, and then you use your brain power,
you'll find evidence to support it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your brain becomes incredibly efficient at finding confirming data and conveniently ignoring or explaining away anything that contradicts your preferred narrative.
It's like intellectual self-defense, but it stops you from actually learning the right lessons.
And it leads to predictably bad decisions, completely, regardless of someone's raw IQ. You see people only looking for confirmation. Or they treat a recent dip in the market, say, as if it's a permanent new reality.
Right, recency bias.
Exactly. Or, and this is a common one the essay points out, they apply their deep specialized knowledge from one area, maybe coding or finance, to a completely different general problem, like managing people or predicting trends.
And they're baffled when their expert toolkit doesn't work there.
Yes. They overthink situations that might just need a really simple common sense solution. They're trying to build a complex algorithm when the answer might just be, let's try talking to the customer.
It's that classic, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail problem. Your expertise creates its own blind spots.
It really does. Deep knowledge is powerful, obviously, but it digs deep trenches. The confidence you build from mastering one domain, say software engineering,
Doesn't automatically make you good at predicting, say, political outcomes.
not at all. But the feeling of competence can easily bleed over. The successful tech founder starts thinking they have profound insights into global economics or, parenting strategies. They get this false sense of general intellectual superiority.
And that feeling, that blind spot, often leads to huge communication problems. The essay calls this the invisible divide. Can you unpack that?
Yeah, it's a simple but profound idea. Once you know something really well, especially specialized knowledge, it becomes incredibly difficult to imagine what it's like not to know it.
The curse of knowledge.
Exactly. We forget that everyone else doesn't share our internal context, our jargon, our assumptions. We're on one side of this divide with all our expertise, and the person we're talking to is on the other side with their own priorities, knowledge, and context.
And most communication failures happen because we forget that divide exists.
I think so. We fail to build the bridge. We just jump straight to our complex point, using our internal language, assuming the other person sees the world the same way we do.
The essay gives examples, right? Like doctors using technical terms.
Yeah, the doctor rattles off complex medical terminology, idiopathic, contraindicated, when the patient is sitting there just wondering, am I going to be okay? Can I go back to work next week? The doctor is sharing data, but failing to share meaning because they haven't connected it to the patient's actual concerns.
Or the engineer trying to explain a complex technical roadblock to a manager.
Right. The engineer talks about compiler issues or database latency, but the manager's thinking about the project deadline and the budget. The engineer hasn't framed the technical problem in terms of its impact on the things the manager cares about.
You have to build that context first. Explain why this information matters to them.
It's fundamental. Success isn't about how smart your explanation sounds to you. It's about whether the other person actually understands the context and the implication for them. You build the bridge before you try to send information across it.
Okay, so our own minds, our expertise can set these traps. Which brings us to a really critical choice the essay highlights concerning identity. How do we avoid getting defined by these past failures or traps?
It boils down to a fundamental decision about your narrative. Are you going to build your identity primarily around what happened to you, the setbacks, the difficulties, the injustices, or are you going to build it around how you responded to what happened? The essay is very clear. You can't really do both successfully. You have to choose.
Why is the what happened to me identity so tempting?
Oh, it's incredibly seductive. First, it gives you ready-made explanations for everything. Why didn't you get the promotion? Well, because of that thing that happened. Why are you stuck? Because of them.
It removes personal responsibility in a way.
It does. And second, it often garners sympathy, at least initially. People feel for you. They offer support. And maybe most powerfully, it removes the pressure to actually change or take difficult action. Because the story defines you as someone shaped by external events, not internal choices. The narrative becomes your shield.
But the essay warns about this, right? That sympathy runs out.
It has an expiration date. People offer comfort. But eventually, if the story never changes, if you never seem to move beyond it, that sympathy turns into frustration, maybe even avoidance. Your narrative stays frozen in the past, but life and everyone else moves on.
So the alternative is agency, building identity around the response.
Exactly. It means choosing agency.
Yeah.
It means letting go of the built-in excuses, maybe even sacrificing some of that initial sympathy and taking ownership of the next step, regardless of who or what caused the last stumble.
That sounds harder.
It is harder, It requires facing the difficulty without letting it define you. It's shifting from look what happened to me to look what I did next. From being defined by the struggle to being defined by the overcoming of it.
The essay offers a kind of formula for this, doesn't it? About struggle and outcome.
Yeah, it's quite stark but insightful. It goes something like this. Struggle plus action equals respect. People admire resilience that leads to progress.
Right.
Struggle plus story equals sympathy. Telling the tale of hardship gets you comfort, but maybe not forward motion.
And the last one?
Struggle plus identity equals exhaustion. When the struggle isn't just a chapter but becomes the entire definition of who you are, it just wears everyone out, including you, because you're constantly reliving it.
That idea of agency, of choosing your response, feels really important when we think about the different phases or seasons of life the essay discusses.
Absolutely. We often internalize this idea that we should always be pushing forward, always growing, always achieving more, maximum effort all the time.
The hustle culture narrative.
Right. But reality isn't like that. The essay points out that sometimes life throws a lot at you at once. Maybe it's a health issue, a big career setback, family problems, maybe several things pile up.
And in those times, the goal has to shift.
It absolutely must. Those aren't necessarily seasons for massive growth or ambitious new projects. They are seasons of preservation, of protection.
So success looks different then.
Completely. The question changes. It's not how can I get ahead or how can I maximize gains. It becomes how can I just stay steady?
Yeah.
How do I hold things together?
And achieving that is success in that season.
It's heroic, honestly. Just showing up to work consistently, keeping important relationships from fraying, making sure the bills get paid, maintaining basic routines when everything feels like chaos. That's the win during a defensive season.
But we often make the mistake of judging ourselves harshly during those times, don't we?
We do. It's the core mistake. Measuring a defensive season by offensive metrics. We feel like we're failing because we're not scoring touchdowns, when the reality is we're playing defense against immense pressure.
The essay uses a sports analogy, I think, a quarterback.
Yeah, it's a great one. If a quarterback is facing a massive pass rush, defenders are everywhere, success isn't throwing a 50-yard bomb for a touchdown, that might be reckless.
Right. Success
is protecting the ball, maybe scrambling for a small gain, maybe even just throwing the ball away safely to avoid a sack, or, worse, an interception. They are succeeding at not losing ground, at not making a critical error.
So those preservation seasons aren't failures. They're about building something else.
Exactly. They build resilience. They build proof to yourself and others that you can weather storms. That foundational competence is something you draw on later when the season shifts back to growth. You know you can handle pressure because you've done it.
Okay, so if pure willpower often fails us because of biases and context blindness, and we need to adapt to life seasons, the real key seems to be building better systems. Systems that work with our psychology.
That's the practical takeaway. The most effective people don't rely on having perfect, unwavering willpower or flawless logic 24/7. Nobody has that. They rely on systems and habits that account for the fact that we are biased, we do get tired, we do miss context.
And the essay lays out some core strategies for these effective systems, like 4 key ones.
Yes, 4 crucial ones you can build into your decision-making process. The first is actively seeking out contradictory evidence.
Fighting confirmation bias head on.
Right. Before you get too invested in a decision or conclusion, you have to force yourself to ask, what evidence, if I found it, would convince me I'm wrong? And this is the important part. You actually have to go look for it.
Don't just ask the question rhetorically.
No. Genuinely search for the disconfirming data. If you can't find any, maybe you're right. Or maybe, just maybe, you didn't look hard enough.
Okay, what's the second strategy?
Lengthen your time horizons. This helps separate the signal from the noise. We react strongly to recent events, the bad sales week, a critical comment.
Recency bias again.
Exactly. So the system is to ask, will this pattern I'm seeing now still seem important in 6 months, in a year? Stepping back and considering the longer view helps you avoid overreacting to short-term blips.
Makes sense. Third strategy.
Acknowledge the limits of your expertise. This goes back to the blind spot issue. When you move into a new domain, a new job, a different market, a new relationship dynamic, consciously check your assumptions. Ask, what are the fundamental ways this situation is different from the areas where I'm already competent? Don't just assume your old toolkit works perfectly here.
Humility about your own knowledge boundaries.
Critical humility. And the fourth strategy is beautifully simple. Test simple solutions before you commit to complex ones.
Don't overcomplicate things unnecessarily.
Right. Sometimes people build these incredibly elaborate plans or systems to optimize something that's fundamentally flawed at its core. They can't admit the simple premise might be wrong. So the system is, always ask, is there a much simpler explanation or solution we should try first? Maybe the answer isn't a complex new algorithm, but just, let's stop doing this and try something else entirely.
It seems like all four of these strategies are really about building that practical wisdom we talked about earlier, working with our limitations, not pretending they don't exist.
That's exactly it. And underlying all of these systems, especially when working with others, is that need for effective communication. We discussed the invisible divide.
Held in context.
Always defining terms, checking for understanding, making sure the other person grasps why this information matters to them. That shared context is the lubricant that makes any complex human system, a team, a company, a family, actually function.
So wrapping this up, it's really about the compound effect of these small adjustments, these wiser approaches. True effectiveness isn't about achieving some kind of perfect, bias-free, logical state.
No, that's impossible.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for paralysis, like Mike with his spreadsheets. The real goal, the achievable goal, is simply competence.
Competence meaning?
Meaning you develop reliable systems, habits, and ways of thinking that help you consistently make decisions that are just, slightly better than random chance, maybe just 51% right instead of 50% right.
But doing that consistently over time.
Consistently over long periods. That's